You find what makes you tick, and then you figure out how to make that work somehow, some way, because you're so passionate about it, you're not going to quit on that. And if you can figure out some way of monetizing what makes you tick.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Our guest today is a former champion bodybuilder who made his mark on the fitness industry with Mark Mastrov and 24-Hour Fitness. He built a business that would generate over $400 million a year in personal training and $100 million a year in nutrition. He went on to own the prestigious National Academy of Sports Medicine and grew the company to be the global leader in providing evidence-based certifications. Today, he's still fulfilling his passion with dotFIT, a sports nutrition research and development company specializing in fitness and nutrition programs for health and weight loss with over 40,000 fitness professionals. In this week's episode, we cover the differentiation between health span, lifespan, and play span, the key nutritional gaps that are missing in the average person's diet and how to fill them, and what you need to know about sports nutrition dosage and frequency. So please welcome the CEO of dotFIT, Mr. Neal Spruce, to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Mr. Neal Spruce, thank you for inviting me back into your home again.
Thanks for having me, Matthew.
It's been a few years, actually. Yeah. It was 2018, and it was our 22nd episode.
Wow. And so what is it now?
It's I think it's about 230.
So awesome. Good for you. That's great. Love it. Well, I'm honored that you would have me back.
Yeah. I was, last week we were in Vegas. We were interviewing the godfather of glutes, and then I was looking on the internet, and they call you the godfather of nutrition.
Yeah, someone does anyway. Yeah.
So
appreciate it.
What have you? What's been going on since 2018? Then are you sort of doing anything different?
Well, we're not doing anything different. We stick to our model, which is evidence-based nutrition, because the problem with ever since the internet came out, it's pretty tough out there where people just sell things with influencers, which is horrific. I mean, an influencer doesn't know anything about nutrition unless it happens to be a real PhD in nutrition somewhere, right? So you have all that. So that's the only thing that has really changed, is dealing with marketing and advertising and all the stuff that's out there, and especially since the pandemic, when that hit, everybody's now paying attention to nutrition, and there's so much bad information out there, and then of course there's all the things that you should have been doing all along. So when something does happen to you, you're going to be okay. That's kind of the moment we're in today. And we're lucky because we were already ready for it, because we're an evidence-based company and we deal with nutrition completely different. It's a holistic approach with not just your food and controlling weight, but also the dietary supplements that you need. No one just accidentally eats food and gets all the stuff they need. So there's a need for it. And doing it right is what it's all about. So we were in a really good place, and we've only grown significantly, while a lot of businesses have suffered dramatically. But we also have properties, gym properties and things like this. And of course, needless to say, they suffered pretty bad during the pandemic, but coming out just fine.
I was, as I was reading into this interview, and I was looking at some of your presentations online, which are pretty interesting. It got me to look at nutrition and supplements from a different way, and I think it's probably a different way to what other people look at it as well. I've been taking supplements since I was 16 of some form, and you kind of you're led by the marketing and the pictures, and I guess by some people nowadays it's the social media people, what they're using. But I didn't realize the value of it, I suppose, or I didn't appreciate the value of it. And I know that's your life's work, but I thought it'd be a good place to start. A very, very sort of broad approach. But there's a couple of things that are quite interesting. You talk about lifespan versus health span versus play span, and I thought that would be a good place to start, because looking at your research from a lifespan perspective, the average age of people is about 76, which is a lot younger than what I thought, and I'm getting close-ish to 60, and you were saying that there's 80% of people that are in their 60s have got some sort of chronic disease, 90% are on some kind of meditation. And so coming back to those three categories, explain what lifespan is, and then how it links to health span and play span.
So in simple terms, obviously lifespan is how long you live, right? Well, which was never a big issue. If you think about hominids, as hominids, two-legged creatures, we are 4 million years old. As the last branch of Homo sapiens, we're about 120,000. But the average life was about 19. all the way up until after the last ice age, before we discovered what nutrition does and how that builds the body, and then we could grow it, and then technology to move it from one place to another, and then medicine to kill a bacteria that would creep into a child or anything else. When you put it all together, the average life by 1931 was 47 years of age. That wasn't too long ago. But at least we extended it out to that particular point. And then the invention of the discovery of penicillin extended life about 20 years. But that's what we call your health span would have been in today's world. Your health span is how long you're relatively independent. You're pretty much taking care of yourself. It doesn't mean you're not on some kind of little cholesterol medication, but at least that's what that would be. And that turns out to be about 68 years now today, because that's what happened. We had a new hurdle. Once we started living longer, we went from that 47 years to 65 years, killing disease that would kill kids off or older adults off. When that happened, we found out, wow, we're getting all these weird diseases that we never had before, because you lived long enough to get it. Our bodies were never programmed to live that long. So we had a new hurdle. And that was now our health span was dead, in our 60s. And but we figured out how to live longer and cheat death until you could live to be 80. And then we realized some people could live to be 100. So the point is, your play span, which is the phrase that I coined on my own back many, many years ago, because we work with competitive athletes. Then I would always be asked by the GM, how long do you think his competitive lifespan is? And I called that play span. His play span is probably another 2 or 3 years based on the assessments that we would go through. Well, wouldn't every human being want to be able to do the things they love to do till the day they die? So a play span is just that. It is to be able to do the things that you love to do that you did when you were younger and you were playing. Okay, so if you were a golfer, for instance, and you were golfing in your 20s and 30s, and you're now still a golfer, and you happen to live to be 100, because you did a few things that we can talk about later about you did right. Okay, you managed your weight, you filled all your gaps, all your nutrition gaps that you don't automatically get from food, and you manage your weight. Well, let's say you live to be 100, and you're on the course at Pebble Beach, a real nice golf course for anybody that doesn't know it, and you're on the 18th hole, you're 100 years old, and you sink the putt, and you drop dead right there. Perfect life. Or let's say you're a cyclist, right, and you used to race cycles in your 20s and 30s, and you live to be 100. You still got that cycle in the garage, and you walk out every day. You're not going to ride it like you used to, but you do it on your own. You get on that bike, you ride around the block, put it back down, drop dead in your garage. That is, every human being has that potential if you start early and do the right things. Now, it doesn't mean you can't start late. You can prolong that and get yourself to be able to stay active your whole life. And that's been my mission since day one. So that's what play span is, being able to do the things you love, cognitively as well. Don't forget, it doesn't need to be physically if you can't do it cognitively. Cognitively and physically till the end of days. And I'm on that mission to make sure that everybody knows that when they're young. And a tidbit on that, when you think about that, the prenatal multivitamin mineral, which is something that became mandatory by the AMA, the American Medical Association, Pediatrics, Dietetic Association in the 70s, it was something about a multivitamin mineral. And the mother was prescribed that. You have to take this while you're, before conception and during pregnancy. And it wiped out over 30% of major birth defects and 50% of stillborns. So why would you ever not stop filling your gaps? You got to do that the rest of your life, and you can have great things happen along the way. Doesn't mean you're not going to get hit by a truck when you're 20, or something bad is going to happen there. But that's the point, is that play span is saying, and we have the ability to do that. We have the ability with a simple, inexpensive formula. Just stay active, maintain your weight, fill your gaps, and nothing more than that. That's all you got to do.
So this gap thing was interesting to me because I was looking at a slide and you gave some examples of the different ages that people could live and then what you could live if you do things correctly. So what is typically then, in a very simple way, without having the benefit of a slide, what if you do get this right, how late can you start and what sort of impact can that have on both your life and your play span? Because when I looked at that slide, I was like, really? Can it make that much difference? Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, and that's it. And by the way, when I do that lecture globally, I'll never forget, I've been in a couple of different countries. People would jump out of the audience and go, is it too late to start now? After I did the thing, because they
thought that as well.
Yeah, exactly. The potential is there and it's been there. I gave you the example of prenatal. What if you did that the rest of your life, filled all the gaps that are here? Because the mom isn't just going to accidentally eat all the things that could possibly build your structure and function properly. what people forget, and this is really the big thing, Matthew, that what people forget is this. We got so caught up on medicine that we just go out, eat whatever we want, do whatever we want, don't even think about it. And when you're young, your body does things well. But as soon as you get past puberty, what people don't realize, old age sets in right after puberty. So that's age 16, 17. Don't forget, the average person died at 19 back in the day for 4 million years. So we don't even know what to do. And the older you get, the more restrictive, the more resistance you have against nutrition and like protein. So as you know, both my sons are pro athletes and they both are, do twice the amount of work I do, right? I'm half their size. I need twice the protein. The older you get, the more your body becomes resistant to it. So we didn't even know that till about 15 years ago. All athletes just did it automatically, but scientists didn't know that. So we know all of those things. So if you can fill those gaps and keep that going, all through your life, you've hedged all your bets and you now can keep that activity up because every part of your body every inch of your body has come from the environment. The old saying, you are what you eat. Let me tell you, that's the one thing that does ring true. But guess what? If you are what you eat, here's the part nobody else thinks about. You become what you missed. So your body is all made up of vitamins and minerals and proteins and essential fatty acids. That's what makes up every part. Your skin, hair, nails, your cardiovascular system, your immune system, every part is vitamin mineral dependent. You don't start life without them, and you don't finish life without them. Nothing happens. And you live lesser if you don't get the right amount. It's just like when you build a building. If you want to build it with straw, that's one thing. You want to build it with brick and mortar and a lot more of it, with all the brick and mortar it can take, it's going to last longer. So the structure and functional ability of the body, if it has everything it needs as you go, and it's not much. It's pretty simple to do. And so the things you eat your food and you fill your gaps. And now you have all the structural and functional components to build a stronger body. And to put it in perspective for your listeners, think about the easiest one for everybody to think about, calcium. Calcium, vitamin D, and magnesium. Those are the minerals that obviously are part of our bone structure, right? In fact, 99% of the calcium's in the bone, 1% in the blood. But if that 1% in the blood goes down too far, you die in 3 minutes. So where's your body going to get it when you don't eat enough calcium? From the bone.
Right.
Bone is nothing but a reservoir for calcium to keep you alive. We call that triage. Something gets sacrificed for immediate life, something sacrificed for long-term health. It doesn't care about your bones and osteoporosis later on. So the body's programmed to be able to draw from other things, and that's triage. Cardiovascular system, you don't get enough vitamin K, then the cardiovascular doesn't get enough in it to keep strong. And the brain, dementia, all these things set in early because you're robbing Peter to pay Paul because you got to stay alive. So those are the examples. So kids that don't get enough calcium and vitamin D growing up fracture 8 times more than kids that do, which means they're never going to play ball. They're not going to go on and move. They become sedentary and not do anything. So there's a compounding effect from doing it right from the beginning. And it doesn't take any more than just filling your gaps because the food's there. In fact, we're eating too much food. But we fill those gaps and stay active, we can control that environment and keep it going. And that's how easy it truly is. And that's really what it's about as far as being able. That's the simple thing that everybody can do that can make a life-changing difference for every person.
And as an example of the difference in age, I think it was like if somebody was 50 and they did some of the things that we'll go on to talk about, it could make a difference in terms of how long they live by roughly how many years, can you remember?
So what you're saying is this, don't forget longevity, you can't predict that. So let me stay with it, but here's what you're saying. So if you live to be 75 years old here and you follow the direction, if you follow your eating, your nutrition, so your RDAs and activity recommendations that we give you, if you follow them 40%, that means that your play span is going to be somewhere around 35 and your health span is going to be at 68 and lifespan is 76. That's following recommendations, 40%. If I bump you up to 50% following recommendations, so fill your gaps. Don't even start moving yet, really, that much, right? Just fill your gaps. I can add 20 years to your play span. So if you live to be 80, you'll now have a 55-year play span. If I move you up to 60%, That's why it's kind of tricky without the slide. If you follow what I tell you to do 60%, so you're filling your gaps again, you're making sure that you're staying moving a little bit, if you live to be 80, you're now going to get up to about 70 years of your play span. And your health span is pretty much even with your lifespan. But the play span keeps going up. You get up to like 75%, following what we tell you to do 75%, which is move, maintain a healthy weight, and fill your gaps. If you do just those 3 things, and we have the potential to live 100, so you get there, you get to 100. Now, obviously, that helps you get there, but I can't predict if you go by a train.
Right.
Yeah, I can't. That's what I'm saying. So I'm just saying, or you have your 0.0001% of the population's got a genetic abnormality, which is very small, because no one's a prisoner of their genes if they do everything right. So you get to that point, and you've been filling your gaps and staying moving and managing your weight. You can actually play all the way to the end. And the slide you saw is all driven by true algorithms, all real facts, all the way around. So it's that simple, and it's like the easiest thing. I don't think there's any simpler thing a human being can do. This doesn't mean you have to join a gym. Yeah, we want you in the gym. Okay, but no question about that. It just means you have to stay active. Your weight, just managing your weight. And by the way, that will happen if you have, from the beginning of time, filled your gaps as a kid growing up. Well, guess what? You're going to stay active, and you want to do all the right things, because it's a compounding effect. One good turns into another. Once you get overweight, once you end up with some excuses not to move, whether it be a fracture or something like that, then things start going the other way. So those are all preventable. But the bigger thing there is, when it comes to any of those type of things, is that that's exactly what we see. If you see a person, they don't know. The person that's not getting the right nutrition, so the mom and dad that's feeding the kid, and they're not filling their gaps properly, they're going, okay, the kid doesn't know they're going to fracture 5 years from now. It's an insidious, it's a starting point you don't know. So it's an insidious progression that will manifest later on as a fracture or sickness or stress or appetite out of control or overweight. These things are all happening because your whole body's driven by this nutrition. For some reason, we think medicine drives our body. Medicine only fixes it after the fact. And you've heard me say this before. We live in a disease care model, not a health care model. Healthcare, that's my business, because I take care of your health when you have it. I'm not clinical. You have your health, and I'm going to make sure you keep it. Right? And that's what my job is. And when something goes wrong because you get something, strange, obviously that's when you go to a doctor, or you're an athlete like me, you fall off your horse and you need your shoulder surgery, that's when you go to a doc. But you can prevent so many things from happening. Like all the cholesterol, diabetes, these are all almost 100% preventable.
Thank you for supporting the Escape Your Limits podcast. If you're thinking about creating a unique and engaging fitness space to take your fitness to the next level, then we have you covered. Escape Fitness design and manufacture some of the most innovative, attractive, and durable functional training and free weight equipment used by many of the best trainers and fitness brands across the globe. As a valued listener, we are offering you a 10% discount off many of the products on our website. You can check out the full range by going to escapefitness.com and use the code DUMBBELL. That's escapefitness.com using the code DUMBBELL. That's it from me. Please enjoy the rest of this interview.
I know in the medical side, it seems as though there's a lot more money and it's a lot better research than fitness, as an example.
For sure.
What you've just mentioned there about some of the philosophies and studies that you've seen, how, if for someone listening to say, well, he would say that he owns a nutrition company, sports nutrition company,
yeah.
how sort of well researched is some of that information?
Yeah. And by the way, that's why I own a sports nutrition company, is because the bottom line is everyone needs it. And by the way, sports nutrition is considered the new healthy aging. So the way an athlete supplements, by the way, 100% of elite athletes supplement, that's the way anybody should be if they want to remain active. It's just lesser. It's just really minor stuff that you need to do. But the bottom line, to all of that, the research there's the money's in the drugs. Big Pharma runs this country and everybody's. And anybody that knows anything about politics, Big Pharma runs everything. And they started the opioid epidemic. They've got all the other things. The doctors now prescribe drugs without even talking to you. I mean, all of this has happened because there's so much money in drugs. It is everything. And so the research is going to go there to create a drug. So for instance, let's say vitamin C cured some weird form of dementia. Well, you can't patent vitamin C. So that means that if they did discover that, they're going to hide that as much as they can. Because if they hide, because they want to make sure they get a drug they can patent so they can make the billions and billions of dollars. Because you can't patent vitamin C. So there's no incentive for the top scientists in the world to go after looking at a nutritional solution for anything. If you make all your money fixing people, why would you want them healthy?
So I want to jump in on there. Okay. I weren't going to say this, but let's take the thing that is probably everyone's talking about at the moment, COVID. So my guess is that there are some other things that would benefit that are not driven by drug companies. I'd be interested in your thoughts on that. And do you think that some of what's going on in the media is purely because there's more incentive to support the Pfizers of the world and the medicine, as opposed to saying, well, look, this also could be really, really good for you, and but nobody's making any money on it. But this is, if you're worried about this is an option.
It's funny you asked that, because I just read an article when COVID first started, and a doctor wrote it. He goes, "Why isn't anybody talking about nutrition? We're all going after a vaccine." And again, what I tell you, we're in a disease care model. We're after the fact. And I'm a big believer in vaccine. Don't trust me. There's no question about that. And we have no choice. You're stuck with it. Mm-hmm. But if we had done all the things I talked about in the beginning of life, we wouldn't have to worry about a vaccine. It'd be another flu, a little cold, a little sniffle, right? There's no question about that. Look at the people that are most affected. I wrote a big article on it. The people that are most affected, the socially demographic areas that are compromised. They're overweight. They eat poorly, undernutritioned, overweight. And those are the people that suffered and died the most. Okay, so we know it was all related to nutrition and activity. All of the poor immune system is related to that. So no one wants to fix that when Pfizer's going to make probably $100 billion on their. But I'm not blaming them. They're doing what they need to do now because it's after the fact. It's too late. You got to do that. But those are the things that. So the doctor wrote a great article. Goes, is there anybody out there telling people what they should have done in the first place? Of course, I raised my hand. Yeah, okay. We know what you should have been doing in the first place. So, again, nothing's going to stop a virus from spreading. It's what happens once it enters your body. And when you have a strong immune system because you built it properly, getting all the vitamins and minerals your body can use, not what you get from food, that's a crapshoot. You don't just accidentally get all the stuff the body can use. That's kind of a strange thought, right? So you fill those gaps, because don't forget, you got to do it within a certain amount of calories to keep yourself lean. And of course, there's no calories in vitamins and minerals, so a supplement just fills that gap. You're feeding your body nutrition without calories to fill the gaps, right? And then the food takes care of everything else, so you're complementing it. So that's it. At the end of the day, obviously I believe in vaccines because you have to, because again, they're after the fact and before the fact for some people too. It's a good preventative measure, so when you do get it, it won't be so bad, right? But if you're nutritionally complete in the first place, we wouldn't even be down this road right now.
So this is a question I've got then, and I wasn't going to go here, but it sort of all ties together. I've been in the fitness industry. I've interviewed hundreds of people, so I'm probably in a slightly different position than the average man or woman on the street in terms of what I get to pass around me. But when it comes to nutrition, and I learned a lot just by researching this interview, I kind of know where to start a little bit, but I also feel it's like, well, who would I go to? Who would I speak to? Outside of just reading stuff online and trying to figure out myself, if you're sick and you need medicine, you go to a doctor. That's pretty straightforward.
Correct.
But if you want to kind of figure out what sort of nutrition, what my gaps are, right? Even most people don't even know they've got gaps. For a start, I didn't kind of realize I've actually got gaps.
Right.
Like, where do you think people automatically go? And then sort of a follow-on from that, probably where should they be going if they really want to kind of figure out what their gaps are and get some information? I know you spent about $10 million in a certification course to teach people, but just for people who don't know about that,
right. That's real simple, though, at the end of the day. I mean, there's not a single person on this planet There's no exception to that rule unless there's some really strange medical condition that, which is unheard of, that should not be taken a complete multivitamin mineral. We know there are 20 known underconsumed nutrients. 6 of them are really serious by human. We have 50 studies that no person has ever, and these are hundreds of thousands of people that we have studied from one decade to the next, has ever gotten the RDA, recommended dietary allowances, is what you're supposed to be getting on vitamins and minerals and protein and so forth. Protein's easy, but vitamins and minerals, no one has ever done it from food alone. Certainly not within a certain amount of calories, right, that would keep you lean. And then if you ate 8,000 calories, you might be able to do it. But what if you bought an orange in Florida versus an orange in California? You think you're getting the same vitamins and minerals in that orange? Not even close. Because soil in Florida is completely different than California. So no matter what, you always have these unknown nutrient gaps. There's no way of measuring those things unless we did tissue samples of all your blood. No one's going to do that. You don't need to do that. Spend 30 cents a day on a complete multivitamin mineral, and just the shocker is, as long as it's complete. A lot of the mass market ones are junk, unfortunately. They don't third-party test them. They don't do any of those. We make ours really super complete because, again, we make them for athletes and exercisers. Third-party test them, and we add as much as we can in there so they don't have to take 2 or 3 different pills. We have tons of vitamin D, tons of vitamin C, so I'm take separate ones, those kind of things. But otherwise, you have to buy it separately. But a simple, that's where you start, right there. Get a gram per pound of lean body mass of protein a day, divided it evenly between your meals. If you work out, take a shot before you work out and a shot after, like in a protein powder, so it gets in your muscles fast, right, and you recover better. That's it. And make sure you're getting enough omega-3s. The vitamins and minerals, that's never negotiable in our world. You have to get one. You sit across from me, I won't even touch you. I'm going to let you work out until I know you're taking a complete multivitamin mineral. Why would I shortchange you? Because your vitamins and minerals control every part of your body. And you're now, from food, you're only getting 60 to 85% worth. I got to get that to 100, and now everything happens faster. You lose fat faster, your appetite's better, stress is less. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes weeks and weeks for your enzymes to come back to use them. And then after that, you're now moving in a much better, sleeping better, all that. So that's just the baseline. And then the 1 gram per pound of protein, that's between your food and a shake. And a shake saves you money on groceries. That's what I always tell people. So don't worry about that. That'll make you'll save money. You need the gram per pound no matter what if you want to stay active. So by doing that, and that's all you need. The omega-3s are important. As you know, that's like one of the number 1 selling supplements in the world, along with probiotics. But that's because all brain development, by the way, a prenatal now, almost every doc, OBGYNs and pediatricians, they're giving, as a prenatal, the complete multivitamin and an omega-3 supplement. That 3rd trimester in the womb, brain development is so important, and almost the DHA is so responsible for that. And that continues throughout life. We know that people that get the right amount of omega-3s when they're in the womb, they have a higher potential for intellectual capacity later on in life. We have all the tests that show that. But you can get that from your fish. And you can see the fish on your plate, so that's negotiable. If you're getting 4 times a week, you're getting a serving of fish, that would be the minimum. Then you're getting enough, you don't need a supplement. But the complete multivitamin mineral and your protein is going to be automatic, no matter what. And then that's all you need to get started.
But where do people get, like you've explained it, and again, it's pretty straightforward, but where would people go? Is it because I know in one of your presentations you talk about the sort of failure of the fitness industry and how we don't actually do a very good job at providing this information. But should it be something that the doctors kind of make a little bit more of and they promote it, or maybe isn't their job? And if so, is it the job of like the fitness and wellness industry to be kind of making these recommendations about that so that the average person kind of at least is a little bit educated in and can cut through a lot of the marketing messages that they get from the supermarkets or wherever else they go for the health stores?
That is where it should come from, and I've been fighting for that for 40 years. I introduced nutrition to the gym for the first time in history, and to your point, I spent $10 million in 10 years to get it certified so it'd be in the scope of practice of trainers. So when you came into a gym, I wasn't just showing you how to exercise. You're just an exercise instructor. I'm showing you how to have a holistic solution so you have the prevention before cure approach for the rest of your life. So you have everything. What you do when you leave the gym. So your results come quicker. So the 1 hour in the gym is one thing. The 23 hours when you leave, you had a roadmap. And that's the person that should be the one that gives them the guidelines, not clinical nutrition, guidelines for their goal, the right calories. Here's a basic idea of what you should be eating. And then here's what you need to fill your gaps. That is the person that should be, because that's the one that is on the ground level while you have your health that can give you that stuff to prevent the problem. So what you call it the prevention before cure. So your medicine cabinet should only have vitamins and minerals, maybe an omega-3 and a protein powder in there, along with your foods, your essential foods. Your medicine cabinet, normally, if you've seen one, people got all these prescription drugs, they got all of this stuff in here. So you can pay just a little bit right now or a whole lot later, depending on how you want to look at the whole thing. And that's what we're trying to do. Keep people from having to go to the doctor for all the things they don't need to go to a doctor for. They could have prevented for no cost at all on one side. And it's so easy. I don't know what people just think they got to do. I got to work out 5 days a week. I got to do that. You don't have to do any of that stuff. It's just such an easy, inexpensive way to be able to self-health care. And that's one of the things we can end on, because I predicted that, 15 years ago, I say the world is moving towards self-health care. People want to take care of themselves and their own family. And now what's fast forwarding that was COVID, because there's a distrust in Big Pharma now. There's a distrust in the CDC. We already know that. So what that did is people, I want to be able to take care of myself. So our business has tripled since the nutrition. And I get my I told you so moment. Now people are listening. They're paying attention. The supplement industry is growing faster than any mature industry in the world right now, globally, at a crazy rate, but not for the right reasons. That's what bothers me. It's not for the right reasons. It should have been this way in the first place. That should be a higher dollar industry than the medical and than the drug industry. That would be a perfect world, wouldn't it? Now we've got health care versus disease care. But that's the world we're in, and that's capitalism, and we're kind of stuck in that little thing. But we're fighting for it. And this thing with COVID is really made that sort of paradigm shift in people's mindset. But you need that person, and that's what, like our fitness professionals, we need that person to give us that little simple outline and then hold us accountable, because you're not going to be accountable without somebody working to do that.
So you mentioned that and I'm interested if this is still true now, or you feel it's still true, particularly as you're kind of invested in gyms. But you mentioned that the gyms have the highest failure rate of any business, and essentially in one of your videos, it's like gyms don't work. So what is it that why do you think gyms don't work, and what is it that they should do so that they can actually be more effective at working in terms of what their promise is? Well,
gyms definitely work, obviously, but for the goals that people are coming into, gyms don't work for losing body fat. In other words, exercise is not a body fat solution. Gyms would work, our gyms, the properties that we have a holistic solution and work for every goal, because we give you the map. We give you the other 23 hours a day along with the 1 hour in there. So that's the perfect solution, right? But otherwise, a gym that is just an exercise house, for people that are addicted to have their own agenda when they leave, that's fine to exercise. But for someone that comes in and wants to lose body fat and joins the gym and think exercise is going to do it, you got another thing coming. Exercise is way too slow. There's no instant gratification. You don't walk into a gym and you're 50 pounds overweight and your goal is to lose 50 pounds. You walk out the first day and go, wow, I look great. Exercise is way too slow. That's why we have the highest attrition rate of any business, because 90% of the people are coming in to lose fat, and exercise is not the answer. It's a very big part of the answer for maintenance and everything else. And of course, it's important to the rest of your health. Your muscular, your bone structure, your cardiovascular system, but that's not why they joined the gym. They joined to lose fat. It didn't happen, so they quit. It's no instant gratification. Yet they will spend $300 in a beauty parlor in one day, and they will spend $300 right there, which is more than a yearly gym membership these days, right? And look at themselves after and go, that was worth every penny. And I agree. That's instant gratification. So that's what you need in a gym. So in our properties, that's what we do. They get instant gratification, because I can make you feel different in one day taking a supplement.
How do you do that?
I can just give you a supplement that actually gives you a little bump. You have more energy, right? Right off the bat. And you can get there, get a good workout in, and you'll feel better. And you'll see your body change. So I give you the roadmap. Here's the calories you get, sample menu. Take this multivitamin mineral, right? Protein before and after, so you recover every single day so you're not sore, right? And that's all. And in 1 week, you'll see your body change. And now I got you hooked. You'll see it in a week. That's the difference. But if I let them do it on their own when they leave the gym, zero is going to happen, right? Nothing, and they're going to end up, the average life of a person is about 3-4 weeks when they don't see their body change.
So on building on that question then, like and I know everybody has their different models, and there's a ton of, there's low cost, there's boutique, there's the type of gym that you guys are involved with. There's a number of different models, but would you say in an ideal world, if you're in control of the fitness industry in America, would you say that in an ideal world for people that want to be involved in gyms in order to lose weight, which is, I think what you said is one of the biggest reasons they come to join gyms, that in an ideal world that they would have a combination of the exercise, obviously the machines, the diet and the supplements, that would be the best way for a business to operate if their goal was to service people who want to lose weight?
Correct. That would be that's exactly right. If they want to service people to lose weight, they'd have to include nutrition, and we make that one big thing. It's got to include supplementation along with their exercise. If their goal is just to work out, and by the way, if you go back to the history, I do a little lecture on the history of gyms. Right, in the history of gyms, starting in the 19th century, they were a gym where people came to work out, all the way up to the 1960s. All the way up to the 60s, you just had male athletes in there, all incredible shape and everything else, right? So there was no attrition, because guess what? Their whole life was eating. When they left the gym, they knew exactly what to do. And their number one goal was performance and muscle building. Now the number one goal is body fat. We opened the doors to the world just as the world got fat. And that was right in like the 60s and 70s, right? And next thing you know, everybody's coming in for weight loss, thinking that they're going to look like that person if they exercise. And they find out that didn't happen, and they quit. So that's how this whole thing started in the first place. So that's why I bought Nutrition in the Gym back in 1982, introduced it to the gym, and we built the Gold's Gym brand, and the rest is history from there. You know, on the properties that we had during that particular time, which is another reason I bought NESM and built that into what you know it is today. Of course, they've done an incredible job with that. That company's gone to different lengths. Well, it was because now they actually they have embraced nutrition too, with nutrition certifications and so forth. Of course, I'm still on the board, and you know they've always been ahead of everybody else, and they brought nutrition into the trainer's world. Now, we don't do, remember, that's clinical. It's a very simple solution. You're not a clinician. You're not a dietitian. We have all those on staff. That's a whole different world. But when it comes to a gym, it's just simple basics. Because the person's already healthy. Here's a basic meal plan that will get you to your goal. And now you got people sticking to your club. Now you don't have that attrition. But otherwise, there's nothing wrong with being an exercise house. If you want to open up a place for world's strongest men, or they know what they're doing when they leave. That's a completely different model. Mm-hmm. And I would even argue that, Planet Fitness, who's a phenomenal company, the way they've grown and everything else, you know, they don't want to bother with nutrition. We're not going to go stick it in here and worry about it. They know it's the right thing to do, but that's not going to make their business. Then they got more work to do, you know, more things to do, more certifications to go through. That's not the model. They've done phenomenal in their growth, you know, and everything else with the model they have. So it really depends on what do you want. You know, I'm a fitness guy, and fitness includes nutrition. And go look it up. It's not just exercise. It's fit, right? Which obviously includes the nutritional portion of it. So that's the way I want gyms to operate. And of course, that is, you know, the best thing. But that will be the gym of the future, as you'll see. That self-health care thing, we can bring people in for another reason besides just exercise.
All right. So why did you decide with dotFIT to distance yourself from the consumer channels? Because I guess, you know, getting it into a Walmart or Whole Foods or whatever, if you know, from what I understand, it's one of the best products is on the market, and my guess is that you could have killed it rather than trying to sell a product through trainers. That it's probably not the easiest business model that you could come up with. What was the reason for doing that? And I suppose you've been doing it for many years. You know, how is that model going, and are you still committed to that?
Yeah. Yes, and yes. So the reason we did it was this: we had to distance ourselves from the mass channels. In the mass channels, and anybody that's listening will know this, whether it be Costco, whether it be Amazon, whether it be bodybuilding.com, whether it be Walgreens, or any of these places that sell supplements. It's not the retailer's fault. GNC, it's not the retailer's fault. You know, they're just putting stuff on the shelf for you to buy. So the manufacturer of each one of those products has to sell two ways. One, they have to outmarket the other person, tell a better story, and they got to compete on price. So everything in the mass market competes on price and marketing. All the money's there. For me to make a product like an omega-3 that you see sold in a GNC or you see bodybuilding or one of those things that sells for like $10 online, for me to make that, it would cost about $1 with that formula. It's just junk. But Mr. and Mrs. Jones doesn't know that. They say, oh, it's just omega-3. I can get that for $10. Yours costs $14.95. Why would I buy yours? Because ours is the right formula and that one's not, but it does say omega-3 and it is omega-3, but it doesn't have the right EPA-DHA ratio. It doesn't have anything right, and it's not third-party tested to make sure it's really there. So we had to distance ourselves from the mass market because then you're guilty by association. So all you got to do is pick up a newspaper and find out these supplements just got busted. The Blackstone supplement company just went down. Big Pharma, a muscle farm went down for making claims they couldn't support. The whole protein industry, 20,000 different brands got sued for misleading the public. This was 5 years they got away with it, saying it was 24 grams of whey protein, 2 grams of carbs. It was 24 grams of carbs and 2 grams of protein. We knew that something was wrong because the price was going down. Oh, I can buy that at Costco or CVS for $25 and you're charging me $45. Yeah, because you're getting white rice in that one and you're getting that. So we finally got them busted. And they had class action suits to everybody. So that's what's wrong with the mass market. So we had to distance ourselves from the mass market completely. I would never sell through them. Again, you're guilty by association and you compete on price. So I asked Mr. and Mrs. Jones, what would you rather me put my money in? Marketing or formulation? And that's the answer to the story right there. So that's why we're the biggest in the NFL, biggest in the NBA. We're the largest supplier of all dietary supplements in all the biggest billion-dollar companies in the world.
That's a tough... Well, I'm asking you a question. It seems like it's there's a lot involved in developing products. I suppose going and saying, right, we're going to sell it through trainers, it seems just like very, very difficult compared to, like you say, going down mass market, even if it's a premium brand. Was it very tough in the early days to kind of make that? It's almost like person-to-person combat.
Yeah. It's still tough. It's still tough getting a trainer to do something outside of what they thought they went to school for, right? So that's always been tough like that. But that's the model that we chose. My partner, Mark Mastrov, as you know, is like, we've been partners since day one. He immediately understood that and wanted to do that. And we were able to build that incredible brand, 24 Hour Fitness, back in the day, to the biggest, far and away the biggest gym chain in the world at that particular point before we sold it in 2005. And so much of that had to do with we built the whole thing. We had nutrition in all our personal training. So our retention was through the roof. We didn't have the attrition rates other gyms had. Our personal training was through the sky. We did $100 million a year in nutrition. Okay, so and that's just in our clubs.
How many locations?
That was 435 back then. Yeah,
right, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So needless to when we said it,
that was direct to, I guess, the margin.
Through the trainers, though.
Okay, so
through the trainers,
right.
They didn't know we had that many members, though. Obviously, you have 4 million members, 5 million members at that point. So, and we had a big personal training business. Now that once they leave the gym, they can still buy from us. That's the thing. But the gym still gets the credit. So we bet up a revenue share there because they're the ones that turned them on in the first place. We always wanted to go through a practitioner first because the practitioner's gone through the certifications. You actually get a legitimate supplement recommendation rather than, you can't go to a store and buy it. You think the clerk at Costco knows what's going on? They can't blame them. It's not their fault. So you can't just go into, you don't know what the formulation is supposed to be. You only know the name of the product you're going to buy. And I had this great conversation with a couple of GMs in the NFL. This one's third-party tested. Here, a branched chain amino acids that I have my players get, and I forget the name. I know the name of the company. I'm not going to say it, but it was a third-party tested, NSF certified for sport product. Right, it was a branched chain. And my son and all his friends, they were playing, and they would always bring their supplements over to show me what the agents got for them. And I go, well, it's third-party tested, which means there's no drugs in it, so that's good, right? And it's clean as far as that, and the label is accurate. What's on the label is in the bottle. But what's on the label doesn't work. That is 1/10 of the amount of branched chain that you need to help do what you want it to do. There's enough in there for a small mouse, but not a 280-pound football player or even a regular human being. But you don't know that, right? even the players don't know. The agent certainly doesn't know that. Mr. and Mrs. Jones doesn't. And that's how you get cheated in the mass market. You're buying under formulation because they compete on price.
And that's the bit, my earlier question, like where do you go for that information? So it is quite simple. You need a multivit, you need a protein, you need
if you're not eating fish, right?
Yeah, fish oil. Yeah. But the bit that I suppose, it's like, well, look, we can all go and do that and go up the road to the gas station and get some of that stuff. But I suppose it's like, well, who, and this probably is your certification, like who do you go to know what to, how to make the choice? And obviously people can see you have a company and it's like, well, they're obviously going to be quite biased. Because I interviewed the guys from a Jim Stefani team just a few weeks ago and everybody kind of says that they've done this and they've done that, and I'm not saying anybody hasn't, but it's like for the consumer or the man on the street or even the trainer or even the athlete, it's like, well, how do you get unbiased information about what to even look for on a label, how to read the correct label? And it seems as though it's like, well, one person says this and they have a really bloody good argument and then the other person contradicts them. So you end up, who is telling the truth?
Yeah. It's very simple. It's just you're not going to get a consumer to actually see it. We have what is called a practitioner dietary supplement reference guide. So for every product that we put into our holistic solution, so our nutrition programs or anything else, whether it's a multivitamin, whether it's a creatine product, whether it's beta-alanine, whether it's an antioxidant product or a probiotic or an omega, there is a complete peer-reviewed document that goes through all the clinical trials up to date that shows the dosage and the form that showed a positive outcome of that ingredient. Because don't forget, dosage is one thing, a form of that ingredient is another. Then you have to go through all the studies that show there was no outcome or a negative outcome with a certain dosage of form. You put it together and you find the one that is the one that has all the science behind the dosage and form. That dosage and form, right? Okay, I'll give you a classic example. Lutein, zeaxanthine, and lycopene are the most popular non-vitamins antioxidants today. They're sold in stores. If you look at it, 10 milligrams of lutein, 7 milligrams, 5 milligrams of zeaxanthin, those are the ones that protect the eye and protect the skin and all of the claims that you make. You go to buy ours that has those doses because you look in the PDSRG, it says those are the ones that were used in clinical trials, third-party clinical trials, not ours, that showed that it had a positive outcome on eye health, brain health, skin health, period. You give that formula now to the manufacturer. They make it to your specs, not their specs, because they'll make it so it'll sell on the chart. It'll sell. You dilute that by a million, or take a tenth or one. We've done we do that. We have slides that show you. Top selling zeaxanthin, lutein, and astaxanthin antioxidants next to ours. Ours have 1,000 times the dosage because what they'll put in is this. Instead of 10 milligrams, they'll put 10 micrograms, which is 1,000th of a milligram. But Mr. and Mrs. Jones doesn't know. They might know that it is, but they don't know the right number. They're only looking for zeaxanthin, lutein. That's all they're looking for. Yeah. And they have the wrong dosage. So whoever company you interviewed, you tell them, produce the document that shows that dosage and form is the right one. Produce that. And then make sure that was third-party tested. I don't even trust my manufacturers. What if they made a mistake? So here's the formula that is proof. Now you make it that way, and then I third-party test it. And if you don't have both those things, forget it. I'm just telling you. So all of our trainers are taught that. And I have 3 videos that I do on that. When I went to the NFL, I showed them that. I go, hey, you can have all these third-party tested stuff. Doesn't mean it works for your athletes. When I did that video, all the teams switched over to us. 3 minutes,
So what are practitioner channel rules?
Yeah. Practitioner channel rules are just what we said. You've got to, 1, you don't sell in the mass market. Okay, that's 1. 2, it goes through a practitioner certification, sort of someone there. And you buy raw materials. We had this conversation before we started interviewing. We get all our, like creatine's a classic example. We buy the most expensive creatine in the world. It's out of Germany. It's the cleanest, most, and I think I pay anywhere from 5 to, depending on the commodity, what's going on, and right now it's way up, 5 to 10 times more than the creatine out of China. Everybody else buys the creatine out of China because they sell in the mass market. You got to get the price down. 5 to 10 times more I pay for the raw material. So that's part of the practice. You have to buy the branded raw material, the best. So when we buy like a beta-alanine, we're buying a carnosine, we're buying a branded one that has studies around it. So that's the other rule. And then the other part is sold into practitioner channels only. And of course, the health club is a practitioner channel because that's what they are when they've gone through the certification and they're certified trainers. And we also sell in doctors' offices. Many doctors' offices carry it. Obviously, they're practitioners. And then just anything like that. There's registered dietitians. They're going through there because they're having an intelligent conversation with you about why you're going to pay $2 more for this. Otherwise, you're going to go to the store and pay $2 less for something that doesn't work. So that's why you need a practitioner in between it, and that's why we chose that channel.
So protein's the big one. Everybody takes it. It seems to be very popular at the moment, although there's a lot of debate in terms of what type of protein should you take, animal, what's the other one?
Vegan.
Vegan.
Yeah, plant-based.
And I know you have soy in your protein, I believe.
No soy in any protein.
Oh, no soy in the protein.
Right.
Okay.
Soy lecithin. People always mix that up.
Okay.
It'll say it contains soy. That's soy lecithin. It's not a protein, and it's infinitesimal. There's no amounts in it. Everything you buy in the store has soy lecithin in it. Muffin mix, cake mix, anything that's a powder. Otherwise, it will not mix properly. Right. And it's from the fat, so there's no allergies or anything to worry about. And it's so small, there's no measurement. That's why there's no amount in there. So that's a mistake people get. It says contains soy. It's soy lecithin. It's from the fat.
So what? You've kind of mentioned it earlier, but I just want to clarify this. So what do you believe, and the research has said is requirements for protein through life at your different stages? So and I'll kind of break it up into sort of early, middle, and later, which is probably over 50. So what would you say are kind of good requirements for someone that's got a relatively active life? They might not necessarily be an athlete, but they have a pretty good and active life, and they want to stay active and fit.
Okay, this is a very simple one. I actually do a very big lecture on this. No matter what, from your womb to your tomb, 1 gram per pound of your lean body mass. Now, you're not going to know what it is in the womb, but you're going to get plenty there anyway from mom, calories going up and everything else. So I'm just giving you the two ends. And the reason 1 gram per pound of lean body mass works, it's about 2 or 3 times more than the RDA. The RDA is a joke. Everybody knows that. If you are an undersized young child before puberty, the RDA, and sedentary, the RDA works. Because the body uses protein. Don't forget, and a good example for all your listeners, the reason females mince at age 12, because you're going to be dead by 19. And every species has to reproduce. 4 million years of being the average life of 19. So that's why we haven't evolved out of that yet. So the body does things amazing when you're young. When you're young, it can make anything work. But as soon as you get past puberty, that's the other side now, right? So now that protein doesn't work as well. But if you're at 1 gram per pound and you're an extremely active youngster, like yours and my kids growing up as athletes, that 1 gram per pound is well above the RDA, and you need it because you're active.
Really? So
now,
kids need.
They need the same thing, 1 gram per pound if they're active. If they're not active, they don't. Right. Okay, they don't. But if they're active and they're growing, you want to maximize growth, including vertical, then they need that 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. Once you get past that, your body doesn't do as well, but you're not growing. So you're not depositing it in lean tissues or going vertical that much. So but you're still active. So the protein stays the same and you're getting the same value. You're recovering just fine. Now, as you get into be older, you're not nearly as active as you was as an athlete when you were 20 or 30, but you still need more because your body's resistant to protein. So that 1 gram still works per pound of lean body mass for that person. Here's where it gets tricky when you're dieting. When you diet, you probably need more to protect the lean body mass when you lose weight. Because for every pound you lose, and your listeners should write this down, every pound of body fat, or every pound of weight that you lose through conventional dieting, that means you're not feeding your body nutrition with little to low calories, so that's supplementing, then you're going to lose a quarter of it. At least a quarter is going to be lean body mass. And lean body mass isn't just muscle. It's organ weight, bone size, brain size, everything. Your body has to get rid of what used those calories. It dumps it. It dumps fat too, but it has to dump some of the things that use calories to survive. So that's getting shrink, and that's why people gain the weight back. Now you're burning less calories, and you just smell food and get fat. You end up with a weaker structure. So by bumping up your protein during that time, you can protect those lean body mass losses because you're feeding it directly the amino acids it needs, the building blocks, without all the extra calories, so you can still lose weight. So you're feeding muscle starving fat is what you're doing when you're supplementing like that, and protein helps you get that during weight loss. So that's when you get up a little higher. Bodybuilders will actually have 2 grams almost up to 2 grams per pound at the very end, because your protein is being used for energy, everything at that particular point. Right. You have to cut out the other calories.
So when you're looking for a good protein, and obviously, yours is a great protein, but if we're sort of like sitting on the fence and saying, like, if you go out, you don't have to buy dotFIT necessarily, although
right, of course
we recommend
not,
it. But what should people look for, and is there any preference over plant or animal protein or whey or soy or anything like that, just so that people can kind of look at a label and say, okay, well, at least I know I'm sort of getting something that's decent?
If you're a vegan for whatever reason, religious reasons, environment reasons, political reasons, whatever your reasons for being a vegan, then you want a plant protein. And you can get a plant protein, but plant proteins are far inferior, obviously, to animal proteins. I mean, we're animals, and our amino acid structure is similar to animals, so animal protein is always going to be superior to a plant protein. No one argues that. But you can make a plant protein as good as an animal protein by fortifying it with the amino acids that would normally be missing. So you throw in some extra branch chains. So we did that with our plant protein. Our plant protein, the superior protein in the world, and no scientist in the world argues that, so you don't let anybody ever tell you anything different, is whey. Whey has and the reason is it has the highest essential amino acid count per gram of protein of any protein on Earth. So it's superior, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that it's going to build more muscle for you as long as you're getting enough of those essential amino acids, okay? But it is cleaner. It also works better for satiety reasons. So whey has always been the superior. A lot of people can't have animal proteins because, one, they're vegan, and they don't want an animal protein. And there's obviously an environmental reason for that. And I applaud vegans for that. I could never be one, but I can definitely applaud them, because of the way they look after the environment. But there's other people that have allergies to certain animal proteins, whether it be a dairy, something inside the dairy. Now a good animal protein, a good whey protein will strip everything out of it. So whey isolate, there's no lactose. So like our proteins have no lactose or any of those things. So whey would always be your first choice if you're not a vegan. No scientist in the world would ever argue that. Simple. However, if you're vegan, then you would buy, like we have one for every lifestyle. So you would buy like a pea protein. Pea protein is probably the most popular today. Soy protein as well. Soy is the only probably complete vegetable protein, and it's the most common protein consumed in Asian countries, as you know. And there's nothing wrong with here people in the U.S. think, well, isn't there a problem with cancer or something? No, there's not. That is a Western sort of myth that's taken there. If you're going to only eat soy and you have predisposition to cancer or something like that, well, then you check with your doctor on that. But they don't even have those problems in Asia, and that's all they eat, right? And they live way longer than we do. So there's nothing wrong with the soy protein. We don't make any soy proteins, but I'm just telling you that we have some in our bars or stuff, because there's actually a health claim, because soy protein actually lowers cholesterol. It's actually very healthy in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of myths out there, that people to get you to buy whatever their protein they are. But we support soy. We don't have a market for it, so we don't make it, right? Our athletes all want whey. Right, and the plant protein, we have a lot of vegan athletes now, or just vegetarian athletes. My son, Zane, the fighter, of all people, he ended up with, just in the last couple of years, he ends up with a dairy allergy. He's been drinking his whole life, having a protein source his whole life, so he uses our plant protein, right? And he has to use that. I think it tastes like shit, but bottom line is vegans love it. So, and I'm not a vegan. But yeah, so that you just fortify it, and it can be as good. You'll build just as much muscle being a vegan as you would eating animals. But I will tell you this. There's nothing natural about veganism. That's why the thing that always cracks me up. People think, well, it's plants, it's like earth. It's not natural. Because humans are literally evolved to be omnivores. Eat whatever's available. In fact, for the first millions of years as hominids, we had intestines about like 100 feet long. Now we're only about 20 feet long, our intestines, but we had them that long because only available were like plants and roots and things like that. So it took forever to get the nutrients out of it. So we had developed these stomachs like horses, right, that would be able to get the nutrients out of it. Of course, we all died young because we couldn't get that. Once we discovered protein, which was fish originally, well before the last ice age, but somewhere, about 100,000 years ago, maybe a little bit before that, we got tools, we could fish, and then omega-3s and amino acids and we formed a brain. And the brain became now something that we could get smarter and smarter with, and all those things began to take place. The brain was there, it just never developed until we got protein. And once that's why omega-3s, which are essential fatty acids that come from proteins, that's how we ended up there. And then the rest of it's history. And that's how by the way, a little side note for all your people here on evolution, that's how we ended up beating the Neanderthals. The Homo sapien was weaker than Neanderthal, right? But our brains developed in the front, and we developed a reason to have community and society. So we became smarter. Theirs were the back because they were hunters. So they had to move fast bursts. So that was all about reaction time for them. So the brains kind of developed, and that was kind of the final branch, all the way around.
So omegas, those are one of the things that you mentioned are very important. I've just started to get into them. I kind of read things, I get into them, and then I come out. But tell us a bit about, why it's really important that we should take one. And then again, similar thing, what should we look out for? I know I believe there's some sort of non-fish omega acids. Is that not omega acids?
Omega-3s.
Omega-3s.
Yeah, right.
Is it like seed?
Yeah, flax oil, flax seeds. Yeah.
So what are why are they important?
Yeah.
What do we look out for? And is there a preference over like a fish-based one or a seed-based one?
Well, okay. For all the claims that are out there right now, omega-3 fatty acids from the marine sources, okay? Those are the ones that you can use all the health claims that are out there. Reduction of triglycerides, brain health. You can use those because those are the ones that were studied, only the marine ones. Because the fish has already converted it into what the body wants. It's like getting iron from plants. If you ate spinach, there's a whole bunch of iron in it, but your body can't absorb it. All right, because it's non-heme iron. It can get a tiny bit, but hardly any. But the cow eats the spinach, or the cow eats the rice, it converts it to heme iron. We eat the cow, we get now pure iron. All right, so the same thing with fish. When the fish eats the algae, they convert it to the omega-3s that our body can use. The problem with the flaxseed oil and all these things, if you're a vegan, you have no choice because you can't eat fish. So you're going to have to buy those. And you want to buy ones that we actually have a link for all our vegan customers. They can go buy it. I don't have enough vegan customers to support a million of those on my shelf. So we send them to some place to get a vegan omega-3. But the problem is the conversion is very poor. You got to convert that to a DHA or an EPA. It starts out omega-3, but it's not the two parts you want. Converting it at least you get about 1/8 of it. So you got to take a whole bunch of it in order to get the omega-3s that you need. Marine goes straight to the source right off the bat, the marines, and that's the marine sources, and that's why the human body does that. So that's all you need. If you can take a fish source, you want a fish source, and you want about a 3-to-2 ratio. You don't need any more than a gram a day, 600 milligrams a day. About 360 grams of the EPA and then DHA, the rest 240, and you got your 600 milligrams, and that's all you need if you're not eating fish.
And what does it do? What is the kind of reason though that you would want to take it? Just general inflammation or what?
So omega-3s are involved in controlling inflammation. So when you get sick, your body overreacts. It's just like when you have an injury, the swelling, you put ice on it to bring it down. That's what omega-3 does. It actually goes in there and tries to manage the inflammation so it doesn't overrun your body.
Right.
All right, so omega-3s are big there. In your regular brain development, your cardiovascular system, every cell in your body has omega-3s on the outside where they communicate with each other. Communication goes wrong if you don't have enough omega-3s. So that's why we have to have that certain amount every day. It's a very small amount because your body can keep most of it, but your cells are constantly replacing themselves. So your eye health, your brain health, all of these things are tied to the cells because anywhere there's a high fat content, like especially the brain, right? There's going to be a lot of action going on in there, a lot of oxidation damage, a lot of inflammation when anything goes wrong when you're sick, and omega-3s can help quell that. That's why it's so important for the immune system as well.
Now, there's a bunch of popular diets that people talk about. I'm actually on one of them at the moment, and so I'm going to group them all together. But keto, paleo, vegan, intermittent fasting.
Yeah. And
when it comes to these sort of shortfalls that you mentioned earlier, are there any common shortfalls with all of these diets that is important to make sure that you're replacing any sort of essentials that it's like, look, if you're going to be doing all those one of those, then you absolutely need to do this. Otherwise, you're probably going to create more problems than you tried to solve in the beginning.
Correct. And we have, by the way, all of our dietitians have charts in their office. If you're on this diet, because we're not going to try to talk people out of it. They get locked into their little world and they listen to their influencer and all that. So we just go, okay, I'm giving up. I'm not endorsing the diet, but here is what's missing. So a keto diet's missing all of these. It removes entire food groups. Well, if you're removing entire food groups, you're obviously losing the vitamin and minerals because that's where they are. All right, so we have a list of all the ones that you're going to have to use. So just take a complete multivitamin mineral. That pretty much solves everything, along with calcium, right? And then we have an amino acid formula that they can take to get the extra protein, like on a keto diet or intermittent fasting, because that won't break your fast by just taking the aminos. You can support muscle during that period, right? So you'll take that in your multi, and that's pretty much it. And you can pretty much fill the gaps on all those diets. Gluten-free diets, the same thing. There's a lot of really good stuff in wheat and different fibers that they eliminate. But there's some people that have to go gluten-free, obviously, which is about 1% of the population that has celiac. But most people that go on the gluten-free diets don't need to. It just became a very kind of a fad thing. But you end up eliminating some important foods. So just make sure you're taking a vitamin, mineral, and taking some fiber on the side if you're not eating gluten things. That's it. Fiber, multivitamin, and just make sure you're getting that protein. If you're fasting during that time, then use an amino formula, right, like we have for those, and you're good. You're good to go.
So as we
can plug the holes in any diet.
and for people who want to go and so if they're listening to this and they're like, okay, there's a lot to take in. I want someone to help break it down and sort of spell it out. Like, do you have any places that people can go or people they can speak to if they want to kind of dive into it in a little bit more information? Like, where would you recommend?
Well, you could. If you want to find out where our science is all based, you go to dotFIT.com. That's that's the home thing. But then, if you want, we always want you to go to one of our clubs. You go to the Club Finder and see if there's a club, and then Club Finder you put in your zip code, and it'll tell you the closest clubs to you where the practitioners are.
Right.
And we've got 2,000 of them, so there's a lot of them around the country.
Okay.
Right there.
So you describe yourself as not the typical entrepreneur, but you have been hugely successful. What would be one of the benefits of you not being a traditional entrepreneur in terms of your entrepreneurial success?
Yeah, I think it's because, for me, I think I told you this before, I am the accidental businessman. I never wanted to be, I didn't want to know I'm in business, but if I was going to deliver the solution, there was nothing out there. There was no one that connected at all. This whole health industry is so fragmented. You got doctors here, you got dietitians here, you got trainers here, you got this here, but you got human beings that want one answer, go to one place and get it. So I go, you know what? Screw it, I'll do it myself. So that was the whole idea of having that holistic solution in with trainers in a place where people could inexpensively get what they needed to live a longer, better life. And so that was it. I became that. So I've just surrounded I've had to buy a bunch of companies in order to do that. That's all. And just keep doing it. And then, the magic in my success, I'll argue this all the way to the end, if he was right here, is Mark Mastroff. If it wasn't for him, I don't think I could have got the word out the way I did. He's certainly the most iconic figure in our entire industry and done more than anybody has over, and probably the only billionaire in our industry too. But he is definitely, was because he believed in everything we did so much. Everything that I did, we've been partners for life because he won't do anything without nutrition. His kids grew up on it, and all the gyms and all the ones we open everywhere, we always includes that component. So without what we did at 24, without Gold's Gym, I got to start my career with them. Without that, trust me, a great ideas just die. So without distribution, you have nothing. So I got lucky with that. So
would you say that if you had to kind of explain it, then for you, it's like you understood where your strengths are, and I'm going to come back to strengths in a second. Okay. But did you know who you were, and then what you did, which made your venture successful, is surrounding yourself with people that could do the bits that you probably couldn't do?
Correct. Yeah,
right.
that would be a big part of it, and that sort of accidentally happened as well because I was dead set, and nothing was going to stop me from doing what I was going to do. I made a commitment to save the world when I was 24. I told the story in our last thing. I grew up in gang life, and I'm leaving, and I always when I If it wasn't for bodybuilding and football, I would have been dead in jail like everybody I grew up with. So when I got out, because of that, I made a commitment. I'm going to pay it back, and I'm going to, save the world through fitness. You're not going to do that showing people how to exercise. There's a lot more to it than that. So that was sort of the evolution. So I was hell-bent on that. I made that commitment in my life, and much to my wife's chagrin, I still have that same mentality. She goes, we build the biggest business in the world. We sell them, and you're still doing this? Yeah. And I go, I think I
asked you that last time.
I know. I haven't saved the world yet. So, so I got to keep going. So that's it. It is my passion for what I do, and I love what I do. If I didn't love what I do, there's made no sense in it, but I really, really do. And I love it more now than ever.
That's good. Yeah. You don't have the pressure, I guess, of... Well, you've had it, so I can't say that. But it's nice to be in a place where you're doing what you... It's nice to be able to do it where you align who you are and what you're passionate about with what you do. And that's my next question, is for people that don't really understand what their strength is, or have not realised it, or I suppose not had the confidence or the acknowledgement to say that is your strength. What have you found is a good way of identifying what that strength is, so that you can then just get on with it and then sort of build things and people around you?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that is it. Not everybody should own a business. I'll definitely tell you that for sure. But I will tell you this. Regardless if you want to own a business or be the best you can be at whatever you do, what you have to find in your soul is what moves you. What is it? And it might just take you a few hours to really think about it. What is it that moves you? What makes you tick? You find what makes you tick, and then you figure out how to make that work somehow, some way, because you're so passionate about it, you're not going to quit on that. And if you can figure out some way of monetizing what makes you tick. So for me, it was nutrition. I sort of accidentally fell into it as an athlete. And when I did, I just fell in love with it. I said, I am going to make a living doing this for the rest of my life. This is what I want. This is really what I want to do. Now, I couldn't make any money at it, so I had like 6 jobs to support myself. So you always got to have plan B, right, which is your real day job, while you're working on plan A. But that was my it. And so I just kept to it. And I think that's what you've got to do. If you find your it, and you dig in, and you make that thing work, and then you got to put, and I did this last for that, you got to put those 4 E's around it. Educate, learn something new every day, and apply it to that it, right? Exemplify, wear your brand. Whatever you believe, whatever you're selling, you better believe in it. And then 3, execute on your vision. Write that 1 to 3 year plan about your it, and what you're going to do with that it. Right? And then, execute on it. And then on the last one, evolve. You just got to make sure that, without distraction, just continue to get better at that. And then you'll see if you end up, being able to make it work. But in the meantime, you got a regular job too, as you're figuring it out. But that's it. that was it for me. I just had to find out what is it makes me tick and make that work.
Focus and distractions then, because I suppose that when you're finding your strengths and as you get into business, I've certainly found that a lot of doors open whenever you get successful, whether it's doing a podcast or the business, nobody wants to talk to you, and then suddenly there becomes a time where everyone's like, well, can you do this? Can you do that? How have you found, and I know you work with Mark, who's, I understand, he's very focused at this, but how do you make decisions about things that are going to move you in the right direction, or whether it's just a case of, look, that's all I'm going to do, and I'm not even going to look at anything else? What's your advice on focus and avoiding distractions preventing you from getting to where you want to go?
Yeah, well, that is a difficult question when you're asking me. If I go back to my early years as a businessman, again, the accidental businessman, I was distracted because I wanted to be something for everybody on the nutrition side. You really have to pick your battles. You got to decide, what are you going to focus on? What are you going to be laser sharp on, and focus on getting to that level before you start branching out. It's the same thing in the gym business. People open a gym, get wildly successful, now they want to open 3 more. You're not even close to being ready with that first one yet. So stay focused on, and for me, I was moving into this area of nutrition. I was just something for everybody, weight loss, sports nutrition, everything. And then finally you get to the point where you go, you know what, I'm just getting distracted. I'm good at a lot of things, but I'm not great at anything. And so I really got down to really being to that place that, we kind of ended up with nutrition. And that was exercisers and athletes, right? If they're not exercisers, doesn't mean you can't talk to me. It's okay. But I'm going to work in that field because there's more than enough to go around, right? And I can get all of them at some point, one way or another. So I really focused on that. What do they want? And let's just put all of our resources around that. And so that's why I always tell people, we train our trainers that. When someone comes in and goes, I can get that, I can buy that somewhere else cheaper. I go, no, this is for exercisers and athletes. Where are you buying that? Well, I can get it at CVS. Well, does it say exercisers and athletes on it? What are you? Well, you're sitting right across from me. You're obviously an exerciser and athlete. Okay. So, so I say, you can't buy this stuff in the stores. So it was always that little thing there. So we really focused on that. And that was really, otherwise I was in the healthcare side. I was in everything. And I go, all right, that's enough. And I wasted so much money chasing ghosts, let me tell you. So you got to focus on it. So I would always tell you that. You got to find what it is and really stay on that before you branch out and hit a home run. Hit at least one home run first, and then you can start thinking about, okay, that worked. Let's think about, the next thing. Yeah.
So coming on to next things then, as we wrap up, fiber. Like you're talking about that you've got, you've retired and you've made all the money and you're still doing it. And there's another business. So what's this about?
But it's related, so give me credit on that one, okay? It's not related to nutrition so much, but it all ties together. Yeah. The problem with what's going on today in our industry, in the fitness industry, is that we cannot keep trainers. We can't find trainers. We can use all the LinkedIns and Indeeds and spend the millions of dollars that we do every year on them. And we still can't get any trainers to stick, and all that. And the problem with our industry, the turnover there, it's the nature of the beast. Trainers are kind of a special group of people. They tend to be transient. That's part of it. But it's more than that. They can't make a living fast enough before they have to move on. So they got to get a part-time job. They got to get this. So what we're trying to solve, because not just for our properties, for the entire industry. Perfect little setup, because where the world is today and people wanting self-health care, they're going to be looking for that trainer now. They're going to be willing to spend the money inside that property that has the answer so people can take care of themselves, not have to go to a doctor for after the fact. So before the fact, we can keep them healthy. So that's our vision for the future. That's what we've been set up for, nonstop, self-health care. And this is the perfect opportunity. So Martin, when we talked about fiber and financing it, it's one of the people that work on one of our bigger properties. It was his brainchild. He goes, listen, we spent all this money on Indeed and LinkedIn. We're not getting anything. Let's just figure out a way to get everybody in one place, all talking the same language, but more importantly, let's get these kids that take all of these fitness courses in college, get all these people, all the people that had all these dreams of making a difference and helping people, and then they go to work in a gym and they get disillusioned because they can't even pay their rent. Let's get them to hit the ground running. Let's give them all the tools that they need from day one, from the time they leave high school. This is the trail you want to go. This is the education you need to walk into one of our properties or one of all my buddies' properties that owns gym and make a living now. And that is the biggest problem. And not only that, actually fulfill what you went to school to do. So that's the dream. So we get all of these, every one of the hundreds of thousands of people coming out of school, all the and even the existing trainers. I like the newer ones because existing trainers got baggage, right? But however, with them, we want to match them to the perfect employer. Because we're always looking for a great trainer, no question. But you want to make sure the trainer matches the employer and what goes on inside that club. So we're going deep, millions and millions of dollars on algorithms and everything else to match trainers with the club. So an owner, when they hire someone, it's got a longer life. If I can just change the life of a trainer from 3 months in a gym, the average, to 6 months, that changes everything about the financial model in the gym business. Our goal is to make it a career from the time they hit it. Doesn't mean they're not going to move on like anybody else does in their careers, but that's sticking and staying there because they will have the right education to hit the ground running. So they'll be able to fill their training book because people are looking for them now because of the self-health care thing I'm talking about, right? And if they have all of that answers, we will market them like crazy. And the gyms will be looking for it because it changes the revenue in the gym. The revenue now goes up in the gym because you're selling way more stuff, more important stuff overall, not just exercise or memberships or competing against the gym next door. And you're actually delivering something that everything will happen. And plus the shrinkage of the gyms now, the 30% of the gyms will never open again. It's even going to be more important inside there to get all that done. So that's that.
So it's an app then, is it?
Yes, it'll be an app where once they get in there, and again, obviously it'll be a website too, but complete computerized program. But it'll have everything in there, and most importantly, once it becomes a social platform for the trainers to immediately there and talk out and be able to communicate with each other, their career, in other words, they're going to have a career path. They'll have an exact protocol of what to do the second they got out of high school, if this is what they want to do, to my seat. Mm-hmm. Take that, and you'll take my job. And it'll be one of our top leaders, right? You want to be a fitness manager? Take this, my job. We're not in the certification business. That's NESM. That's the other company. That's the big one for us. But many good certifications, but I'm biased. NESM's the best, so we're always going to make sure that people see that. But they're all there, so you'll have access to all of the great education partners out there. But there's certain ones that'll be targeted to what you want to do, and it's too hard for a trainer to pick, a newbie to pick that. They're just going to take whatever they're not even know what to do. So this will take care of them and build that career path for them. That's number one, and then number two, be gyms to be able to get trainers and keep them.
So on the gym side then, so if I own a gym then, so I'll be able to go in there and find trainers, will I?
Absolutely.
Like a recruitment kind of...
It's like LinkedIn, if you will. I hate to use that example because it doesn't work for us in our industry. It works for everybody else, great company, but the point is, this is fitness, just targeted all around fitness and, obviously sports, those kind of things, but targeted there. So it's a place for all of these resources, all the fitness resources to meet and greet and tell their story, and then we line them up with the perfect situation. We match them to whatever they're truly looking for a longer tenure wherever they're going to be, and a much easier for us. We just need it for our properties. That's one part, but everyone needs it. If we are going to make the health club, if we're going to make them the meeting place, the place for everyone in the community to go for health, to prevention rather than the cure. If we're going to do that, then we have to have the right intellectual property, and people will be willing to pay for that to get in there. So if we get these people hitting the ground running where they're ready to go and they get in there, they'll be able to make a living. And that's what the ultimate goal is right there. But and just as importantly, to your point, an owner will be able to find a trainer. So my buddy Angel that owns all the Gold's gyms here in SoCal, right? I spend literally a third of my day getting trainers for gyms. We have, can you find me some trainers? Can you find me some trainers? Because don't forget, if the gym's not working, I don't have enough trainers, then I don't work. Yeah. I need the trainers in the gym. So that's part of my job. And I'm done with that, right? Okay, so this is another thing. This will take the pressure off me, as we build this app. That everybody will get everything they need for their career path if they want to be in the fitness industry. And I would argue once they find out what they can do and what they will be able to do and how much money they can actually make when they have the right education, to your point earlier, stay focused. This is all you need to focus on. This is what you take. Boom, you're going to have that job that pays you what you want.
So final question then, Neal, and I'm going to ask it a different way to what I did last time, but Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you believed is impossible and gone on to make possible. As you're sort of, entering your next chapter, which a bit like me, I've got my 60s coming up there at some point. You've got your 70s, I believe. Right. Yeah. So, and I'm sure you're going to live to 100 and beyond. So, how are you going to escape your limits in your 70s?
Yeah, escape my limits.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, I just, I made a living with my body for 20 years, so I have wear and tear that most people don't have, right? As I was a giant, and when I competed. So I just had a knee replaced. So on my left knee, just had it replaced. I've been putting that off. All my buddies that competed as long as I did had them done in their 50s. I was able to keep it off till 70, And so that's one way I'm going to stay together and just make sure my joints are still there and move it. But I mean, and it's just keep doing it. Just maintain. If I maintain, by the way, as you get older, you want to be light. Because, as light as possible, because less work for the body to do when it doesn't know how to do things that well anymore. So just keeping my weight down, and staying active and taking all my supplements and even more. As you get older, you need more, so just taking that. And that's how I'm going to manage it. No different. I'm busier now than I've ever been. And I think that's what really keeps me going because, the brain is like every other muscle. You use it or lose it, and it's like, for me, I'm more active now mentally than I've ever been in my life. Which is another neat thing. I'm an old, decrepit man, and I'm reminded by my kids all the time, right, that I'm the incredible shrinking man. My wife says I'm half the man she married.
Well, you used to be 220 pounds.
265.
265.
Yeah.
Wow.
And by the way, your listeners can Google that; they'll see it.
I've seen the pictures.
Yeah, right.
You're a beast.
And so the point is that as you get older and you get like that, your brain doesn't. It gets stronger. The smartest people in the world are in their 80s and early 90s, the smartest scientists in the world. Wow. It keeps going and going. The more information it gets, and you connect better, as long as you're using it, obviously, and you don't have some kind of weird early dementia or something, but it gets going and going. So as I shrink muscle-wise and I can't do all the thing, my brain can do more. It's pretty cool. And so that's the way I look at it. And that's how I'm going to manage it all the way to the end.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, Neal, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Always a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love it.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.